Oh baby, it is a big week. It's a big week indeed because we have CPI and FOMC all within a 2-day spread, of which a lot about to go down. Speaking of going down, SEC suing a few coins, or not necessarily a few coins, but a few exchanges that are hosting these coins that are going to be at the top of today, because Bitcoin really hasn't done all that much from yesterday to today. So I suspect that's lower term timeframes, we don't really need to go over at this point. There's not really anything new to update there. However, on these particular ones, a lot of new things to update, as we haven't really spoken about them before. But before we get into it, I do want to once again let you know that you can get the Jewel Light for free for the first 30 days if you follow the directions and the link in the description below. And then of course, yes, there is an affiliate link to the Apex exchange, which is a decentralized exchange, which you may or may not find valuable, seeing as the SEC is just suing all these exchanges, which also will give you 5% off your trading fees for the lifetime of the account. All right, sweet. Let's just jump right into it. Starting off with Solana, symbol SOL on the weekly right here. This one was caught in the crosshairs of the SEC, it looks like. And what do you know, having a pretty damn bad week, obviously, last week. But what can we be looking at as of right now on the relative shorter term timeframes, the daily right here? On the short term timeframes, does it try for a bounce after coming down on a pretty nasty full week? Perhaps yes, can easily bounce back up, anywhere around 16 to 17 bucks and not really do all that much. Ultimately, however, the weekly is the big focus right here, of which long-term down is the direction, hidden bearish divergence alongside a downtrend, alongside volatility expanding on the weekly from the lowest levels it's ever seen ever. This move is very unlikely to be done as of right now. Throwing on the drawing tools right here, we can also see, playing within this range between the top end at about what, 28, about 28 bucks basically, versus the bottom end at about $10, let's say 10 and a half bucks, in alignment, by the way, with the 618 Fibonacci retracement right here. Yes, I do think that will because we are not a part of Solana. The community members are part of Solana. No, Solana likely to test back down somewhere down around this, the bottom side of the range, maybe after a short-term bounce. However, the big focus would be on what happens on the next test towards the bottom side of that range. If it can actually close and hold below about 10 bucks, at that point, this one's going to get much more nasty, very likely finding at least down to $7 at that point, and probably bounce there, and then we come back to and review it after that. By the same token, I would switch around to being bullish on this one, actually, looking at this as a complete reversal if Solana can start to come back up above that $28 number. Until then, however, long term the direction is down, and I would expect that you're probably going to see a short-term bounce followed by another test a little bit lower. Then the real question is what happens during that. Perhaps we see that somewhere around the events are coming up in the next few days here, again with the CPI and FOMC coming out. So that could be a bit of a catalyst for that, but does not imply that it'll actually break it. Probably test it, might not break it. In fact, that'll be mostly decided by Bitcoin, I suspect. If we see Bitcoin really take a massive leg lower, that's at the point where I'd be looking for maybe like $7 and perhaps even worse than that over time. Yes, so that's Solana right there. Moving on to Cardano's very similar chart over here, actually. A little bit weaker because it did make new lows on last week's dump compared to, well, any of the lows that we saw in the past couple of years. More importantly right here, a few things. Similar to Solana, I do think that this one tries for a bounce first. it had a pretty... that's just like no fucking prisoners right there. You could even say that this is already a bounce. It certainly is. Obviously bouncing from like 22 cents to 28 cents is a 30% fucking move. That's wild. And I expect that it probably bounces a little bit more. Maybe it bounces all the way to, 29.5 cents. But, similar to Solana, as long as this one's basically back below that long-term lower high at about 46 cents, down as a direction, and all bounces are just that, bounces turning into lower highs before likely trending lower over time. Similar to Solana as well, we do see hidden bearish divergence on the weekly. We don't see the same sort of low volatility reads here. I don't necessarily think that's like a consolation prize, but there you go. So after a bit of a short bounce here, probably does look for this one to turn back on over. And similar to Solana, kind of playing in between these ranges, we got about 45-cent high, let's say, versus about 26-cent low or 27-cent low, in alignment with that 618 Fibonacci retracement right here as well. If it does come back down and either take out last week's wick low, meaning just trading below it, or close below about 20 or what would I say here, about 26 cents. At that point, yeah, I'd probably be looking for this one to come down significantly into the mid-teens, maybe around 15 to 14 cents or so for the long-term play. And just like just like Solana, I forget if I already mentioned this one. Man, I got some concussions yesterday. It's not looking good, man. I'm already fucked. But back above this last lower high at about 45 cents. That's at the point where I'd say, hey, this is a macro reversal, and you're likely to see this one work its way sideways and up, towards 69 cents. Great number there as well. Anyways, yes, so we've gone through that. Let's get to the next one. In fact, this one's actually, I would say, different in a lot of ways. That's going to be BNB. Of course, this one probably under a little bit more, critical fire, just because it is the exchange coin of Binance, which is being sued by the SEC. And I suspect that they probably don't, take very kindly to this particular one. But of course, having a pretty nasty last week as well. All things considered, though, it is relatively stronger than most things in this market, actually, just by the nature of where it's at in comparison to the major EMAs here. In fact, in this case, it's right around the 200 simple. It's actually, it's just barely below the 200 simple right now on the weekly, whereas most things within this market are, well below. In fact, Bitcoin's just like barely did just close below last week, yes, but barely holding on there as well. So similar to the other ones, does this one try for a bounce first? Probably yes. You are testing your range lows here, right? Same lows that have essentially been holding this thing up, going back to June of 2022. But just like the other ones, any bounce that essentially fails to pop back up basically above 350 is just going to be another lower high, and very likely does trend all the way back down towards the lows that we did see in June of 2022, somewhere around that 382 fib as well, marking off the bottom side of the range officially at the low 200s, essentially. Breaking below there at that point, very likely going to see moves down, somewhere, at least a 0.5 at 139, 140-ish region, and maybe things get nastier than that over time as well. Most things in this market are kind of hanging on to that 618, which this one's would be actually just below $100. So pretty fucking nasty there as well. What else do we have here on this particular chart? Looking at the weekly, I'm not really getting too much from indicators, just seeing continuation on the weekly jewel, as you can see down here. Maybe the daily will have some for us. The daily is getting really overdone in the short term. So that is why I do say that most of these things are probably in for a short-term bounce at minimum. And then I guess the hopium is, does the bounce turn into reversal? It's got a lot of fucking work to do. I would say unlikely, quite unlikely. But these bounces, as you can see, can be pretty impressive, actually. We saw one of the earlier ones like traveling 30% or somewhere around there. It was crazy. But this particular one, the big focus would be on that, let's just say just above $200 region. Below there, that's where things just are going to get really fucking ugly. Just kind of peruse around the different time frames, because we can see that the monthly 55 is also coming in around that $200 number as well. I do suspect that you will see at least a test down around there, at least another try for a bounce down around there as well. But what happens if and when that bounce fails, that's at the point where this is going to get really fucking ugly. Because this is a rectangular consolidation right here, or an M formation. M is for murder, by the way. This one, would have an implied move. Yeah, and that would be kind of around your 130, 140-ish region if that one was to give way. So, big focus right there, especially with these events coming up on the very soon horizon, tomorrow and I believe Wednesday. So I suspect this market's going to get a little bit less unboring within the interim, and these charts in particular, could be just absolutely fucking terrible, especially if CPI and FOMC doesn't help out the market, just in general. Anyways, I think that's a good place for me to be leaving off on this video. Nice and short and sweet, kind of switching things up a little bit. Let me know what you think about this sort of style, as I'm just curious, and we'll get back to Bitcoin hopefully tomorrow when there's something a little bit more exciting to be looking at, and then especially I suspect that Wednesday and Thursday are going to be really fun. So I think this is the time for the market to, for traders, to be paying attention. Not necessarily saying that it's going to be going up or down, although things are positioned in a certain way, which we've gone over in the past few videos. But this would be a great week for resolution, basically, with all those financial catalysts, events, and whatnot coming up. So yeah, I'll be signing off on that note. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully tomorrow.